Okay, everybody, welcome to Cure Addiction Now. I'm so excited to be here today with this very esteemed group of people that I'm with. They are rocket scientists in every way, rock stars in other ways, and so grateful to be part of this and watch this grow. This was a dream I had with my son Jason Davis. He came to me one day and he said, "Mom, I've had this addiction problem for a really long time, and what's out there's not working for me. I keep relapsing. I'm not doing well." And he had helped me with my other charity called Race to Erase MS. And he said, "We've done great things there. We need to do great things for addiction. Everybody ignores it. Everybody treats you badly if you have an addiction. People shun you. They don't accept you. And this is just absolutely, not okay." And I know so many people that don't have the luxury of ever going to spend one single day of their life being sober. They can't afford to go to detox. They can't do anything, and they're scared. And it's really an unfair disease. So we put together this charity called Cure Addiction Now, or CAN being a very positive thing because this is something we can and will absolutely do. And Cure Addiction Now, the idea of the last word now, we are losing people every single minute of every single day. We cannot afford to go slow. We have to go fast. We need to raise tons of money, and we need to fund the most brilliant doctors in the country. And here they are. I'm sitting with them. I feel very fortunate to be here. We have to do this fast because if you look at the numbers every single day of how many people pass away, it's horrifying. It is so horrifying. And now with the fentanyl crisis and everything else, it's gotten that much worse. It just keeps growing. And the idea of the shame, people don't wake up one day and decide, I think I'll be an addict today. I think I'll have MS today. I think I'll have diabetes today. Diseases choose you. And there's no reason that you should ever feel ashamed of a disease that you have. It's part of your chemistry. We are all wired differently from the minute we are born. We're not all going to have the same diseases. We're not going to have the same likes, dislikes, but it's unfair that for so long everybody has pigeonholed everybody that has an addiction, made them feel so incredibly bad and have such a bad life. I have MS. I know if I told somebody today that I had MS, they would be probably compassionate if I was just diagnosing them. Send me, flowers or a cake, or I'll take you to your doctor's appointment. I'll be there for you. I'll drive you. If you tell somebody today that you have an addiction, like, go to rehab, get sober, and call me, maybe 6 months from now, and they really are afraid and don't want to help you. Well, that's not right, and that's not fair. It is now the leading cause of death in our country for people 50 years old and younger. That is absolutely not acceptable. If you're the parent or the loved one of somebody who has this disease, you suffer right with them. Every member of the family suffers. It's just how it goes. And so this disease, I think it afflicts in those numbers about 90% of our population. When you look at it, everybody knows somebody has somebody, is scared about somebody. If you're that parent, every time your phone rings, I think I have PTSD from all the phone calls that I got in the middle of the night, not knowing, is that call the coroner? Is that call the hospital? Is that call jail? Is it a friend or somebody trying to shake me down for money for some reason? It's really scary. You don't know. And this child, I loved my child Jason Davis more than anything. He was the love of my life. He was fun. He was funny. He was smart. He was creative. And unfortunately, he's not here today. So the only thing that I, as a parent, can do is, in his memory, do something that is going to change the trajectory of this disease and start saving people's lives, and not making anybody ever feel ashamed or bad. Even as a parent of that person who's the addict, you feel really bad. Parents make you feel bad, like you're not doing enough. You're not a good enough parent. You're not a good enough person. You feel bad, but some things you just don't have the tools to fix. So this was created with me and Jason a long time ago, and he's not here, but I know he would be really proud where we are today to see that I have Dr. Kurt, I have my lovely friend Lisa McDowell, I have everyone, brilliant people here. And we are going to find a cure. We are working on many things. And so today you're going to hear from the brilliant doctors. I'm so happy to have my friend Lisa. We met very recently. We have a kinship. We both had the most incredible, wonderful sons who we love more than life itself. Unfortunately, we both lost our sons, and today we are both here keeping their name alive, their memory alive, and in their memory, hopefully going to save a lot of lives. So that's what it's about. So thank you, everybody who's here. And I know there's a lot of people watching virtually. So grateful that you're all here, and listen up, ask questions, whatever. If you're online, you can type in the questions, and Kurt will monitor that. And anybody here, feel free also to write questions and send them up.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. I'd like to welcome everyone to the fall forum and webinar of Cure Addiction Now. Delighted to have your interest, have you here in the audience, and people and online in the web. I'm Kurt Rasmussen. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer of Delix Therapeutics and the Chair of the Scientific Advisory Board for Cure Addiction Now. And like I said, I'm delighted to have your interest, but I'm delighted and sad at the same time. I'm delighted to have your interest and have everybody be here and all our great panelists, but I'm sad for the reason we're facing a horrible, horrible problem in our country and in the world. We have a historic danger. The overdose death crisis is continuing to skyrocket and grow. Fentanyl and all its horrible cousins are making a huge impact. Now we're introducing new things like nitazines. Wait to hear about that. They're almost even worse. But we also have a historic opportunity, and that's what I'm excited to share with you today. We've got some of the best scientists working on addiction in the world here, and there are new medications being developed to help people, and we'd like to give you some highlights of what's going on there. And interestingly, 3 of them are already on the market and could be repurposed towards addiction. They're not approved for addiction. I gotta be very careful to say that, to consult your doctor, but there are medications that are already on the market and in development, of course, that we can use to treat substance use disorders. And we'll hear about them today, and I think you'll be very excited by it. So it's a historic danger, but a historic opportunity that I think we need to take care of. I'll introduce the panel when their speakers, when they come up. We've got a great lineup from people from Johns Hopkins, Columbia, West Virginia University, CSOs from private companies, it's scientists from USC. It's just an all-star team here. You're looking at an incredible crowd. But I have to remind you that we're doing work, it takes money to provide grants for doing this work. So I'm not going to be ashamed to ask you to please give generously. We're putting it to good work, and I think we'll demonstrate that today. So I'm delighted to have and introduce our guest panelists, Lisa Vidal, who's an advocate, patient advocate, an actress. And Lisa, please share your story with us, please.
Hi, my name is Lisa Vidal. I'm an actress, and I started last night saying that I'm not one of these amazing, brilliant people that I'm so grateful for, but I do play one on TV. My son, Scott Jared Cohen, died 3 years ago. He was an amazing soccer player. I'm sorry, it's still very fresh. Can't help but cry. He was an amazing soccer player, phenom, gifted, beautiful young man, coming from a family that loved him, praised him. He had everything you would imagine to succeed. And when he was about 16 years old, he was at a tryout for the Junior Training Olympic program, and he got very badly injured by another player. And he had to go into surgery, and the surgeons, the doctors who did the surgery, put him on oxy. And that was the beginning of the end of my beautiful son. We noticed little by little changes, and he was hiding it at first. We didn't know what was wrong. We sent him off to college, and he didn't even make it a full semester. He came back completely addicted, and that then followed an 11-year drug battle with my son. This beautiful boy just destroyed We took him to doctors, rehabs, therapists, stomach doctors. We had his brain checked. I mean, I did everything to save my son. My husband did everything to save our son. Our family went through so much. I had my son 5150 3 times because he was putting his head through the walls. He was doing terrible things, and we wanted help, and nobody helped us. They would ask him, "Are you going to do anything to yourself or anybody else?" And he would say, "No," and they'd send him right back home to us. And we didn't know how to do, we didn't know what to do. Going broke on rehabs, not getting the help, like Nancy said, it was hopeless. And I was so angry and so hurt and just trying everything. And I can't tell you how many times my husband had to go down to where these drug dens are and homeless and pick my son up in the street, naked, people stealing from him. It was terrible. I was like, oh, what happened to my baby boy? Where is my baby? What is this? What's happening? And we just were so lost, and our family just crumbled. It just crumbled. And then, like, my poor baby, he was like, "Mommy, I'm trying. He tried so hard. He tried everything." And then he would tell me, one day I would be like, "Oh, wow, Scott, you look good today, babe. You look like strong." And he was like, "Mom, I had to take 3 times as much so I could feel normal, so I could be here with you guys." And it's so scary because he just started trying every drug. Like, he just was on everything. And he started shooting up, and I never forget, like, I fought with him with a needle to try to take it away from him. It was just terrible, the things that you go through as a parent. But I feel like I have to tell his story. We went on vacation to Hawaii, and I've been with my son when he was suicidal. He was like, "Mommy, I don't think I could do this anymore." And I thought he was like, he had just come out of rehab, and I was like hopeful. I was like, okay, I think he's gonna be better. And then we went away to Hawaii, and he shot himself in the head in his apartment. And I didn't get to say goodbye to him. I didn't get to see him. I didn't know. I was so angry I couldn't get to him because I could get to him every time. So I'm angry. I'm really angry. I'm angry at Big Pharma. I'm angry at these people who created a drug that could kill our children like that. So I'm so blessed that I got to meet Nancy, totally crazy, in a crazy way, because I've been praying, like, God, show me what to do with this pain. How do I honor my son? How do I help people? Because people need help. I've had 5 friends that have died. Their children have died after my son, and I just had one of the moms die 8 months after her daughter died. So I feel this, like, passion, this determination that I have to do something. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm like, here I am. I'm like, I don't know how I got here, but here I am. And this beautiful angel and these rock stars. My heart is full because, like, I'm ready. I'm like, use me, God. Like, use me. How do I help? What do I need to do? And I want to use my platform as an actress to be a voice, to help, to take away the stigma, the shame, because this is an illness. My son was not a loser. He was a beautiful young man, and his life was destroyed, and our family was destroyed in a lot of ways. And I just don't want people to live in the dark, in shame, and hide. We shouldn't be that. We shouldn't be doing that. And it makes me angry that our society and our culture has created that type of narrative behind addiction. And I just hope that I and we can be a part of changing that and creating change and breaking that. So thank you for having me here. Thank you. I love you. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Lisa. That was very powerful. I want to assure you that our mission is to develop new medications to help people that are suffering from substance use disorders. And we're doing everything we can to do that. And we're making really, really exciting progress. And we're going to share that with you today. We can do more. We can do a lot more with your help. I'll introduce the panelists. And again, this is a fantastic group. And we're working hard to develop new treatments. And I think new treatments to help the people will both help the people, the families, but also change society's attitude towards substance use disorder, which is embarrassingly medieval right now. We treat them like lepers, and that's horrible. I think new medications can help change all that. I'm very happy to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Kelly Dunn from the Johns Hopkins University of Medicine, and she's going to share with us the need for innovation in the treatment of substance use disorders, what we were just talking about. Kelly?
Thank you. I just want to say, Lisa, thank you for being open to talking about things, and Nancy for bringing us together, because I think it's not something that people often feel comfortable discussing, but it's really powerful, and I think understanding the firsthand accounts and helping to destigmatize it will go a long way towards helping to support innovation in the area, so I appreciate that. The goal for me today, I just wanted to set a context for the audience to help, I guess, set the context for these scientists and clinicians who are here today, because they're all doing work that is really genuinely going to help advance the care and the science of substance use disorder. And so so that you understand kind of what we are dealing with in the field. So we're still seeing unprecedented levels of death related to overdose, and it's primarily opioid overdose, but it's not exclusively. And at the moment, we estimate that it's 1 person every 5 minutes that we're losing to a drug-related overdose in the United States. Throughout the United States, heroin has been largely replaced with fentanyl, which is being produced illegally. Fentanyl is very different than heroin. It's stronger, it's harder to treat, and it causes more kind of additional medical problems for people. And we're working really hard to help treat it, but some of the medications that we have that treat heroin, maybe we could optimize them further to help them treat fentanyl as well. In addition, there's lots of things being added to fentanyl throughout the United States, and so one of those is xylazine, which is often referred to as trank dope. And now there's a new version of that called rhinotrank as well that we're starting to see pop up throughout the United States, mostly on the East Coast at the moment. But they are very strong sedatives. So in addition to fentanyl, which is already a sedative, these additional very powerful sedatives are being added to the products, and it's causing a lot of other challenges for the people who are using these drugs. And one thing that we're also seeing is high rates of polydrug use. So people are combining often stimulants with their opioid products as well. And there's lots of reasons that might be occurring, but one thing that we hear commonly is that it's in part to offset this extreme sedation that they're experiencing from the adulteration of the heroin product. And we don't have treatments at the moment. We do have some treatments for opioid use disorder, although we need more, but we don't have treatments for stimulant use disorder, and so we still need a lot of advancement in that area. And then all of the experience of using these substances, and sometimes it's how they're used, and sometimes it's the substances themselves, are leading to other medical challenges as well. So we're seeing high rates of bacterial infections related to injections or wounds that won't heal for people. So we just have a substantial need to really quickly advance the care for our patients and to advance discovery. And we have really good science in the field that we are making really great breakthroughs and understanding more about how drugs are, what we might target as medications to treat these substance use disorders. But our current funding model is very slow, and it's predominantly reliant on the government to issue grants, which we're very thankful for, but they take a very long time from the time that we discover something to develop it all the way out to a medication. And we don't have the same level of investment that other fields of psychiatry do, for instance, fields like depression or anxiety, where there's more kind of industry investment in these areas. And so we really need help to be able to narrow that window down so that we can take these discoveries and more quickly advance them to human trials. And that's one thing that Cure Addiction Now has been really powerful at doing, is bringing together people with all sorts of different expertise in chemistry and human trials and clinical care, and putting us together in a small room and letting us talk through from our different perspectives how we might be able to move these discoveries into treatments, into medications, and having repurpose existing medications. And so we're very thankful for this opportunity and to have this group of scientists here. And so the work that they're going to talk about are these late-breaking projects that really have strong potential to be able to help people now.
Thanks. Thanks very much for the context. Wonderful. The next four or five speakers now will talk about some emerging treatments that are beginning to show effects. And I'd like to introduce Dr. James Mahoney from the Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute at West Virginia University. He's going to describe focused ultrasound neuromodulation as a treatment for substance use disorder. James.
Great, thank you, Kurt, and thank you, Kelly, for the invitation. Nancy, thank you for everything that you do, for advocating for individuals that are afflicted by substance use disorder. I know that it takes personal tragedy to unfortunately make great things happen, and that's what you're doing by bringing all of these great clinicians and researchers and scientists together. So thank you for that. I know Jason's looking down, and he is so proud of everything that you're doing. It's been refreshing over the past 24 hours to work with everyone here and to bring these great minds together. So thank you for that. A little bit about myself. I actually started my research career out here in UCLA about 20 years ago, working on medication development for stimulant dependence, in particular with methamphetamine. Fast forward, I went to school, got my PhD in psychology. And when I finished my fellowship in clinical neuropsychology a few years back, I said, where can I go that needs the help the most? And that brought me to West Virginia. Unfortunately, West Virginia has been leading the overdose rates across the nation for the past several years. So I knew that it was going to be rough. I knew that it was going to be tough. I was not prepared for exactly how bad it was until I got out there. The amount of despair, the generations and generations of trauma, and it was just I had no words for it. I still don't have words for it. Working with these individuals who really just want help but can't. They definitely feel stuck. Nancy was talking about the stigma behind it. They don't want to seek treatment. They view it as just a way of life. Because they're scared of what people are going to view them as, and it's affecting everyone. It's not just affecting the people that choose to be addicted. There's no such thing. No one wakes up one day and says, I want to be addicted. I want to lose everything. No one says that. So once I arrived in West Virginia, I had the opportunity to partner up with a neurosurgeon who had just relocated from Ohio, Ali Rezai. He started the Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute, and one of the primary missions is to combat the addiction epidemic which we're currently facing. So what we did first was we came together, brought a team together of neuroradiologists, neurosurgeons, neurologists, behavioral medicine, psychiatrists, psychologists, brought together everyone into the same room and said, what can we do? So we came up to look at a form of what we call neuromodulation, which is deep brain stimulation. It's currently approved for Parkinson's disease and tremor. And we said, how can we make this work for addiction? So what we did, we came up with a plan to use this technology, which involves an implant in the brain. And we targeted the area of the brain that's the center of the reward circuitry. It's called the nucleus accumbens. And by doing so, we were hoping to raise dopamine levels. Dopamine is a pleasure chemical that's released when you use drugs. Raise that just enough for the individual to be able to adhere to the standard of care, which is medication and behavioral treatments. So fast forward a little bit, we had really very nice results with that. Individuals that were, past history of several overdoses, they're really near death. This is obviously not a first-line treatment. This was more of a last resort treatment for these folks. Very successful results. Individuals that had overdosed multiple times in the past weeks before the surgery have gone on to have, months, some of them years of sobriety, and are really living very productive lives in abstinence. But how are we going to get this out to the masses? How are we going to get this to help? We had 110,000 people that are dying because of overdoses over the past year. How are we going to be able to make it so that these individuals don't have to die, that we don't have to have family members or friends or anyone else that are going to die? So we came up with this other technology that was already approved for things like Parkinson's as well. It's called focused ultrasound. So focused ultrasound can also target those deep areas of the brain, such as the nucleus accumbens, but does so in a non-invasive fashion. So we went to the FDA about 5 years ago, and we put together a protocol, got an investigational new device application, and we're able to start testing this new technology. So first in the world, we ran the first few patients, had very successful, it was safe. First off, that's what we need to show, that it's safe. And then what we wanted to do was see exactly how it helped these individuals. So we've continued to enroll participants, and these individuals are folks that have severe addiction. So once again, multiple overdoses. You know, as Kelly mentioned too, it's not just an opioid epidemic we're facing. We're facing an addiction epidemic. It's several substances. I can't remember out of the last hundreds of patients that I've seen, how many of them came in with just an opioid use disorder. The amount of, you know, methamphetamine and cocaine and other substances that are also flooding the streets in addition to fentanyl, it's really preposterous because it's just so much is out there. By focusing on the center of the reward circuitry, we're really able to reduce cravings and reduce use for all addictive substances. So it's not substance specific, because we know that the medications that some of which we were discussing today work well for opioid use disorder. So Suboxone, buprenorphine, very, very useful in controlling opioid cravings and use. But what we find in clinic is that these individuals then, they're no longer using opioids, but then they start using methamphetamine or they start using benzos. And then I'll talk to them about that, you know, and say, well, what if there was a Suboxone equivalent for methamphetamine? And they'll tell me, well, I'll probably start using cocaine then, because they know that it's the addictive properties of these different substances. So by using a technology such as focused ultrasound, targeting the center of the reward circuitry, we may be able to reduce use and reduce craving for multiple substances. And we found just that. Once again, this is preliminary data, so it's very, very novel. It's a very novel technology for us to be using for addiction, but very promising. We're extending the trial to look at other substances as well, and definitely look forward, you know, to seeing how these results pan out. But once again, very promising thus far. And it instills the hope back in what's going on, especially in West Virginia where we're conducting the study, because these individuals, they're so hopeless, there's so much hopelessness that's currently present, there's so much despair. So just seeing that there's active scientists, active clinicians that are working to really combat this epidemic is giving them that hope back. So once again, thank you, Nancy, for bringing us all together so that we can talk more about how we can cure addiction. Thank you.
You can see more here, learn more about Dr. Mahoney's work. There's a 60 Minutes feature on the work going on there at some point in the past. I'd like to introduce right here, Dr. Andrew Herring from the Alameda Health System in Oakland, and he's going to tell us about the use of ketamine in the emergency room to help people transition off opiates. Dr. Herring.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Nancy, so much. Thank you, Kelly. This is truly an honor. Many of my just sort of heroes in science are here, so this is just a thrill for me personally. I am an emergency physician at a county hospital in Oakland. I am also an addiction specialist and a clinical researcher. My simple mission is that I think that everyone in the country should be able to walk into their local emergency department and get high quality care. Care that leverages the knowledge and science and achievements of people like here that are sharing this panel right then and there. It shouldn't be in a week or a month, but right then and there. I saw this, you know, occur in front of my eyes in around 2018, where we started using buprenorphine or Suboxone in the ER. And it completely changed everything. It went from fighting about opioids, just a whole raft of stigmatized, harmful attitudes towards people, towards help, towards treatment. And it transformed people's lives in front of us, not simply the patients, but also the providers, because they had a tool. So I saw there's this huge need for tools, which is the theme of much of this work, is creating tools. And I'm really here to implement those tools to the most vulnerable people in our society who are coming into emergency departments. I founded something called CA Bridge, which is a organization at the Public Health Institute, and we saw that there's actually most physicians, most nurses, most people working in hospitals and emergency departments, they want to help. They want to change a history of stigmatized attitudes and want to reach people. However, they need training, they need support, and they need tools. We've been very successful. We've reached over 280 hospitals here in California and have touched over 24 states. And there's a lot of work to do to get to that place where everyone can have that guaranteed access. One of the most sort of promising tools is ketamine. It's inexpensive, it's been around for a long time, it's highly efficacious. And then the question is, when you have someone who has suffered an overdose, and their risk of death is so high, shouldn't that be the first person in society who has access to this treatment that is known to help depression, or should they be last, which is kind of where we are right now. And so my mission is to move them up in the line and make them first. And I just am really grateful for the support of Ken and Nancy and all these people here to try to make some progress on that goal. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about the effects of ketamine that you've been seeing?
Yes, absolutely. Since ketamine was first developed in 1971 as an anesthetic and pain management tool, from literally the first description, what you see is that while it treats pain, it also very rapidly produces a sense of well-being, a positive outlook that can be described as an antidepressant, and that seems to persist beyond the administration. So you can give it once, and that person will feel better for days and even weeks and even longer. So it's this very, very powerful effect that's been consistently observed for 40 years or more. And now the question is, again, how do you use this in the most responsible way for the people who are most able to benefit from it? And again, I would really see that in the emergency department where people are in crisis and they want to start on a life-saving medication like buprenorphine, this is this perfect moment to give you a boost. It's not something you're going to do every day. It's not a treatment you're going to repeat every day. It's something to do just once, right there, to get you onto buprenorphine or get you onto another medication. And that boost is just this critical opportunity that I see anecdotally in front of me, just being very, very helpful for patients.
Would you also talk briefly about what you were saying yesterday? I found it so fascinating with you got a grant and you did it at one hospital. All of a sudden there's 280 hospitals, and what you've done and how the average amount of insurance covers $17, which is crazy for a visit, and what you're doing, because what you're doing to me just blew me away yesterday. I think if you could explain that, it's really exciting.
Sure. So I work in the safety net, so I work exclusively with people here in California who have Medi-Cal, and in addition to doing the clinical work and the research work, I help set up programs because I want to be able to fund ERs to do this work, and then they need someplace to go after the ER. And so the $17 comment is just working with my chief medical officer trying to set up a follow-up clinic, or where do you go? And that's the capture. That's how much money you get paid by Medi-Cal to see a patient. $17 was the take-home. Right? So that's why we do, this work of changing the incentive system to make access for people is so critical. If we're going to reach, when we have 110,000 people dying a year, right, the scale here is huge. It's 11,000 deaths in California alone. That's double gun violence and traffic deaths combined. Right? We estimate there's over 1 million people coming to ERs in California alone with a substance use disorder. So we have to grow tremendously, and to grow, we need to change how you fund healthcare, particularly for low-income people. So that was the bridge program, was to go to hospitals and say, okay, we're gonna leverage federal grants, and we're gonna give you startup funding. to fund a navigator, someone who has lived experience often, who can be relatable and kind of catalyst for change, to model treatment and positive attitudes, and to link people into care. So that was, with that program, we were able to grow and reach almost every hospital in California, which was very inspirational. It's possible, right? So that's just the work we have to continue to make that sustainable in terms of a funding standpoint.
Yeah, and I'd like to congratulate Dr. Herring's work. Ketamine is available now, obviously, in emergency department, and has been used for depression. And so patients come in suffering from opioid use disorder, and the use of ketamine can ease the transition to get them onto buprenorphine, which can be a life-saving medication, and that helps that transition, which is a very difficult transition. And you've got the patient in the situation where you can help him or her. So very, very exciting potential if we can learn more about it and implement it, and we'll be able to help a lot of people with the medicine that's available now.
And what was exciting is you just give that person one shot and it lasts for 6
Once
days.
you use it
One.
properly, and there's been a lot of bad press about ketamine, of course, but if you use properly in the right dose by a qualified physician, it can really make a big difference. Okay, so our next speaker, Dr. Christian Hendershot, is from the Keck School of Medicine right here in town at USC, and he's going to tell us about another medication that's already on the market for its potential use for treating alcohol use disorder, and that's semaglutide, and in this example, he used Ozempic. Dr. Hendershot, please.
Thanks very much, Kurt, and thanks so much, Nancy, for bringing everyone together. It's been a pleasure to be part of this group over the last couple of days, and what a great group and a great and innovative initiative here. Just a bit of background, I'm a clinical psychologist by training, have been doing addiction research for about 20 years, and I've been fortunate to work in a variety of great addiction research and treatment institutes, including neuroscience-based institutes, hospital-based institutes, and treatment-based centers. And I actually moved out here recently to join the Keck School of Medicine at USC and the Institute for Addiction Science, which is a relatively new addiction institute here, about the same age as Cure Addiction Now, actually. And it's a trans-departmental institute spanning 10 different schools at USC and 80 different faculties. So really kind of a translational focus, which is exciting. And one area that we're trying to grow and scale up now is our treatment research. And so I'm going to talk briefly about our work in the area of GLP-1 receptor agonists as a potential new class of treatments for substance use disorder. And perhaps not everyone's familiar with the term GLP-1 receptor agonist, but I'm guessing everyone is familiar with the brand names of these drugs, including Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro. And everyone's probably familiar with the fact that these drugs are very effective for weight loss and very effective for treating diabetes. Some of you have also probably heard from friends, colleagues, et cetera, that when people start taking these medications, they often tend to report reductions in alcohol use, reductions in cigarette smoking, and sometimes other compulsive behaviors. And so this is a signal that we've been hearing, more prominently, especially as these drugs have rolled out, and really they're being used by large numbers of people in the population now. And one thing that's not as well known is that starting around 2013, so over 10 years ago, there started to be non-human animal studies coming out showing that these drugs actually do reduce the intake and motivation for addictive drugs. And one of the really key pieces of this literature, which is pretty large now, is that GLP-1 receptor agonists can actually reduce drug intake across different classes of drugs, so alcohol, nicotine, stimulants, and opioids. And that's really exciting because we really have no treatments at this point that can be used to treat various types of addictions, as one class of treatments. So based on that work, we started a few years ago now, 2 clinical trials to test Ozempic as a possible treatment for alcohol use disorder and for nicotine addiction. And so we recently completed those trials. They're the first 2 clinical trials with this particular medication for the indication of addiction. While we were doing those trials, all of these media reports started coming out. So we had reports in the New York Times, CNN, Wall Street Journal, et cetera, just talking about kind of these anecdotal reports of people reducing substance use while they're on these medications. And so that was interesting because it generated, for one of the first times, a lot of public excitement about a potential new treatment for addiction. In the meantime, we've also seen several studies come out leveraging clinical chart records and insurance records and demonstrating that when people start semaglutide, which is the drug also known as Ozempic, they tend to have fewer medical encounters related to substance use in the medical records. And so this is kind of a way of generating data quickly while we're still trying to do clinical trials. So we, as I presented yesterday, we have some preliminary work from our alcohol trial that we think is very promising, and my hope is that that will be out publicly in the next couple of months. In the meantime, we're trying to get more studies going in this area. We think it's a very promising area, and we think that really those of us doing work in this area think we're on the doorstep of something potentially important. There are also challenges doing this work. One of them is engaging with pharmaceutical companies to provide support for this type of work. There's a huge level of investment in these drugs for the indications of metabolic disorders. At the same time, these companies are not very interested, generally speaking, in promoting studies that are targeting addiction. So that's one of the challenges. And then the other challenge mentioned by others already is that our NIH funding system is excellent and very rigorous, and it's also not particularly fast all the time. And so it takes a while to get a study from conception to completion and then to publication. We're looking at a number of years. And so I think that's where organizations like Cure Addiction Now play a very important role in kind of promoting innovative research that can be done in a kind of a high-risk, high-reward fashion, and just kind of getting around some of the common barriers to getting research done with more traditional funding mechanisms. And I guess I'll just end also by talking about stigma, because that's really a barrier, as others have mentioned, to people seeking treatment for substance use disorders. And that's an area where we think this class of medications can be very important because they are already out there, widely used clinically, people are familiar with them, and they're actually interested in taking them. And medical doctors are increasingly familiar with prescribing them. So we think this is a unique opportunity. And the argument has been made recently that there was actually a whole Oprah Winfrey special on this, which some of you might have seen. The argument's been made that these drugs, because they're so effective for obesity, they really kind of prove that obesity is not a willpower issue. It's a medical condition that can be treated effectively, and that by virtue of that, this can reduce stigma towards obesity. The same exact arguments can be made for addiction, but they're not being made. And so our job is to generate the data to be able to make those arguments. So thanks again, Nancy, for organizing this, and I'll stop there.
Thanks, Dr. Hendershot. I should also mention that the GLP-1 agonists or semaglutide, these type of compounds are also being looked at in other substance use disorders like opioid use disorder, and there's some other trials ongoing. Our next speaker is Dr. Chris Toombs. He's the Chief Scientific Officer of Proneris Corporation, a startup company, and this company has very cleverly taken a compound that had been in people, was under development by a large pharma, but whose development was stopped for a different indication, but has found out that this compound can be very useful for treating people with opioid use disorder and blocking opioid withdrawal symptoms. So Chris will tell us about Tizampanil, a new medication for opiate withdrawal. Dr. Toombs?
Okay, thank you, Kurt. As Kurt introduced, I'm Christopher Toombs. I'm a PhD pharmacologist by training, also a board-certified toxicologist, and I'm part of a small outfit in Seattle called Proneris Corporation. I'm a co-founder and the chief scientific officer. And what we're interested in is glutamate. And as it pertains to addiction, and I don't need to tell my colleagues here, but for the lay members in attendance and for people perhaps viewing over the web, glutamate is the major excitatory neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. And we all know that opiates are central nervous system depressants. And so with prolonged use of opiates, you essentially suppress other systems in the central nervous system, including glutamate. And upon abrupt cessation of the use of opiates, glutamate biology comes roaring back in a very large way. Think of it as being a coil that has been compressed, and when the opiate is removed, that coil releases its energy, and that energy turns out to be a negative thing in the context of addiction, because a hyper excitatory state develops in the central nervous system driven by glutamate. And it's that exaggerated signaling of glutamate that creates a constellation of physiologic and psychologic symptoms that we call withdrawal. And for the individual that suffers from this, it's purgatory is probably putting it nicely. But they are in a glutamine-driven purgatory or worse. And that, unfortunately, is what keeps people using, because the symptoms of withdrawal are that bad. So what we're doing about it is we have a drug that is an antagonist of glutamate. It's called tizampanel. And to the extent that the symptoms of withdrawal are driven by glutamate, an antagonist might be useful in that setting. And there's good reason to be hopeful about this, because in animal studies, if you take laboratory animals, rats, and habituate them to prolonged use of opiates, you can create an addicted rat. To the extent that people are critical of animal experiments, I think Dr. Rasmussen would agree that you are indeed creating an addicted laboratory rat. And when you remove the opiate from the rat, they too develop symptoms of withdrawal that have very strong parallels to the human condition. And so, as I said, we're very hopeful about this. We've done a lot of our own work to replicate some work that's gone earlier. We've built upon that. We've made clinical supplies of drug. We've done additional safety testing. And we've developed a human study protocol. And we took all of that fairly recently to the FDA for its consideration. They had some additional feedback, which we addressed, and the result now is a green light to proceed with human clinical testing. And this is very recent news, and only yesterday we announced here at Cure Addiction Now the commencement of the first trial of tizampanel for human opiate withdrawal symptoms following cessation of opiate use. The trial site is going to be the Indianapolis School of Medicine. The study will involve 40 subjects with escalating doses of tizampanel. We'll be measuring all the usual indicators of positive clinical response to opiate withdrawal. And the site initiation visit, which is essentially a dress rehearsal for a clinical trial, that's 2 weeks from today in Indianapolis, and I'll be there. And after that, we'll be open for business, and we'll be taking in patients that are brave enough to take this path, and we will find out if tizampanel can make a difference for them. So, if you'd like to know a little bit more about the trial, it is announced on the clinicaltrials.gov website. You can search on our company name. It's our first trial, it's our only trial, so there's only one match in the search. But the company's name is spelled P-R-O-N-I-R-A-S. The trial is forecast to take about a year, and so I'm hopeful that by this time next year, we can be back here at Cannes with some positive results to report. So we were very fortunate that timing worked out, that we couldn't announce it here at this meeting. Probably is not a better forum to announce such a thing in front of a group of people that are so dedicated to such a praiseworthy effort. And on that, we have to thank Nancy for her vision in putting this together, and we're very grateful for the opportunity to visit here. So thanks to Kurt and the CAN staff and my fellow participants. Wish us luck, and thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Tremendous. Like I said, there's some new medications heading into development. Very exciting. I'd like to remind everybody, you're welcome to write down questions and submit them at the end. I'm sure they're generating some questions, everything that you've been hearing, and bring them up, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end. Our next speaker is Cassandra Gibson-Reichart from University of Kentucky, and she's going to talk about another medication that's actually on the market as well, cimetidine, as a potential therapeutic to reduce fentanyl withdrawal severity.
Thank you, Kurt, and Nancy and Kelly for the invitation. I'm really grateful for this group because it is sorely lacking the investment in addiction research to kind of facilitate new treatments. And one of the things I think that Dr. Hendeshop mentioned is there are these huge barriers for us as researchers to move a potential medication through the pipeline to get to people who need it. One of those issues is the timing and also just the number of hurdles you have to overcome. So I want to thank this group for kind of placing a spotlight on that. And when I think about it, I think of this kind of maybe helping us to move forward a little faster. And one way that my lab can contribute to that is we use animal models that allow us to do experiments quite rapidly to try to find positive effects. And specifically, we try to model fentanyl addiction, and we can kind of look through different medications that could potentially reduce some of the effects of fentanyl on the body. Because fentanyl doesn't just affect the brain, it affects the whole body when it's consumed. And so we've been looking at biological effects of fentanyl in the intestines and digestion, because we all know that opioids can affect digestion, cause constipation, also withdrawal is associated with other gastrointestinal issues. And so we're thinking about how fentanyl works. And actually it can get stored in the intestine, in the gut. And during withdrawal, it can get released, kind of making withdrawal very complex to treat because people will feel worse and then a little bit better and then worse again. It's in these peaks and valleys. And so in conversations with Dr. Dunn, we were thinking of potential medications that could maybe block those effects or reverse those effects. And with the idea in mind of facilitating the pipeline to be faster, one of the ways that we can do that is we can select medications that are already used for other indications. And the one that my lab has been working with is cimetidine, which is Tagamet. You can get it at Walgreens. So it's over the counter as well. So it's readily available and easily implemented. If my lab shows positive effects, that then justifies the human studies to see if we can repurpose it. And right now, what we've actually found in our rodent models is that it is reversing some of the fentanyl withdrawal issues that our animals show. One of them actually is fentanyl induces significant body weight loss. And cimetidine, just one intravenous infusion right after they take fentanyl, it's blocking that weight loss during acute withdrawal. And the weight loss is actually really important because it is related to how bad the withdrawal signs are in these animals. And so we think it's a really important, potentially clinical indicator of withdrawal severity. And cimetidine is showing some promise, at least in reversing those things. So that we're really excited about it. And so I'm hoping that this kind of strategy of facilitating that pipeline can be implemented across our field. And I want to thank Cure Addiction Now for the opportunity to tell you about it. So yeah, with that, I'll stop.
Thank you, Cassie. Our next speaker is Dr. Cecilia Bergera from the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. and she's going to tell us about scientists that are creating more paths to success for individuals with substance use disorder.
I'm borrowing a mic, sorry. All right, so hi, I'm Cicely Bergaria at Johns Hopkins University in Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. And my research area is generally on the mechanisms and measurement and treatment of opioid craving. And the reason I'm interested in that area is because usually when a person enters treatment, their success is largely defined by their ability to then no longer ever again touch the drug that they were previously using. And of course, treatment is not linear. I think a lot of people know that. And so scientists are recognizing that we need more instruments or ways to assess success among people who are seeking treatment. So what I've been doing is I've been trying to formalize with the FDA a measure for opioid craving that would specifically help scientists create medications to specifically target craving, and then for medications to be labeled by the FDA to treat opioid craving. And so hopefully the idea is that then if we can have this new target and then develop new medications, there would be then new ways that individuals could then get to their treatment goals ultimately. Treatment is not one size fits all. And so within sort of the spirit of that, those ethos, CAN is also funding a project of mine that is comparing and improving methods to transition people from chronic fentanyl use to buprenorphine, which is a life-saving medication that we've talked about a lot here. And the goal is to find ways that are quick and that are specifically useful for individuals, right? It's going to be different by individual if it's acceptable or safe or going to feel right for them. So there's a real emphasis on that for the study that we're currently doing. The project that I'm doing, that others are doing here, will hopefully ensure that more people are successful and not just a small lucky few. So we're creating more pathways to success. So I just want to thank you for your time and thank you for having me, Nancy and Kurt. I had a fantastic time yesterday collaborating and talking with colleagues, and it's always invaluable, so thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. What many of the speakers have been referring to is we had a scientific meeting yesterday where we just spent all day going over data, comparing data, talking about things. It was wonderful. So that's part of what CAN does, is in addition to funding important work, we bring the scientists together to talk about, to have a collegial community where we can exchange ideas and help each other. Very important component. Our next speaker is Dr. Sandy Comer from Columbia University Medical Center. And Sandy's going to tell us about vaccines and monoclonal antibodies as treatments for opioid use disorder and opioid overdose. Sandy?
Thank you, Kurt. And I would like to thank Nancy as well for organizing this event. I think it's amazing what you're doing. And I want to really thank Nancy and Lisa for sharing your stories about your personal tragedy. I'm a mother as well, and it just chokes me up every time I hear you. I heard it last night and I heard it today. It's just, I can't imagine what you must have gone through. So thank you so much for sharing. I'd also like to thank Nancy and CAN for the awards that you provide to different scientists. I mean, I think the Innovator Award is really nice, but I also think it's really great that you're funding early career investigators. So you're helping build the next generation of scientists, and that's so critically important. So thanks for that. So I'm just to talk about some of my science that I'm really passionate about. I'm a behavior pharmacologist by training, have spent my career looking for medications for treating opioid use disorder and now overdose as well. So we're working on two main projects that I'm really excited about. One that I talked about yesterday involves the use of biologics, they're called. So they're antibodies that target opioids, and also monoclonal antibodies. as treatments. One is considered active immunization, the other is considered passive immunization. The vaccines are considered active immunization because they actually stimulate the immune system to develop antibodies that target the drugs. So we're working on an oxycodone vaccine that we have in clinical testing right now. Very soon on its heels, we're working with a heroin vaccine. We're working on a fentanyl vaccine. We're also developing, in early stages now, nitazenes, because that's the next thing on the horizon. Our general approach is that we could conceivably make a vaccine that targets not only opioids, but things like cocaine and methamphetamine and nicotine. So we're really, really excited about this approach. Our clinical data so far has demonstrated safety. So people have received up to 4 vaccinations. They've been well tolerated. We have some preliminary data to suggest that they're very effective in reversing the effects of an opioid, which is the goal. So the way these vaccines and monoclonal antibodies work is that the antibodies bind to the drug, and it's a pretty large complex, and it prevents it from getting into the brain, which is where they produce their effects. So we're happy that we have the opportunity to do this. The other area of research that I'm super excited about, which I presented last year here, is a device that stimulates the phrenic nerve. So the phrenic nerve innervates the diaphragm, which controls breathing. We're developing this as a potential treatment for opioid and other drug overdoses, actually, where the concept is that a layperson, just like with naloxone, they would take the device, place patches on a patient's neck who has overdosed and is not breathing. Through the skin, there's electrical pulses that are activating the phrenic nerve to stimulate the diaphragm to mimic breathing. We have preliminary data in pigs, actually. It's kind of a funny model. I've never worked with pigs before, but and it works amazingly well. We're really excited about this, and we just recently received a pilot award from Cannes to test it for the first time in people. So we're really grateful for that. As some of my colleagues have mentioned, getting NIH funding is great. We're really happy that it's available, but the process is really long. So this approach of, fast, high-impact funding is incredibly important for the field. So just want to thank you again, and
Thanks, everyone. We're getting a list of questions, so please, this is your chance. You got the experts here. Write that question down, and we'll do our best to answer them. Our next speaker is Dr. Jennifer Ellis from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. And here's another medication that I mentioned is already on the market for another indication, not approved for addiction or substance use disorder by the FDA. I have to be careful to say that. It's approved for insomnia. It's called suvorexant, and she's going to talk about evaluating suvorexant for persons who use both opiates and cocaine, feasibility and lessons learned. Jennifer?
Thank you so much. It's been such an incredible honor to be here. I feel like I've learned so much over the past day, and it's been just so wonderful to get to be here among such accomplished scientists and practitioners. So thank you to Nancy and Kurt for bringing everybody together. So my name is Jennifer Ellis. I am an assistant professor, and I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist that works with people with substance use disorders. And one thing that has really struck me in all of the settings that I have worked in, both outpatient treatment, inpatient treatment, is that it's very rare for people to just use one substance or just have one substance use disorder. It's more the norm than it's more the norm than the exception for people to be using multiple things. And this can really complicate treatment. So for example, we see that a lot of people who use opioids will also use stimulants like cocaine. And although there are FDA-approved medications for opioid use disorder that can be very effective, there are not FDA-approved medications for cocaine. So often, even when somebody is receiving the gold standard treatment for opioid use disorder, if they're still using cocaine, they are still being often exposed to cues, and it can really, really make treatment very difficult. So over the past year and a half or so, Dr. Dunn and myself have been working on a pilot study that's looking at a medication called suvorexant and whether it might be helpful for this group of people. And as Kurt mentioned, suvorexant has a very high appeal because it is currently an FDA-approved medication for insomnia, but it's very different than many other sleep medications that are currently on the market. It has a very low potential for addiction and abuse relative to many other sleep medications. It's the fact that it helps sleep is very appealing for people that are using cocaine and opioids because we know that sleep is very disrupted in both of these groups. Another appealing aspect of suvorexant is, in addition to working in the area of the brain that is involved in arousal and in sleep, it also connects to the brain's reward center. And in studies of animals, they have found that animals that receive suvorexant are actually less likely to administer cocaine, opioids, and a range of other substances. The study is ongoing, and so we're very, very eager to see what the results are. Right now, the study is still blinded, so we don't know who was randomized to receive suvorexant and who received the inactive placebo medication. But we have found that sort of across all the participants in the study, we have not seen very high levels of what are called adverse events. So we're not seeing that people are misusing the medication or having very negative side effects or serious reactions. The most common thing that comes up is drowsiness. And in those cases, we allow in the protocol for somebody to lower their dose. And yeah, we've also just learned a lot from working with this population. So one thing that we are going to kind of consider in some of our future work is that benzodiazepine use, both medically prescribed and non-medically prescribed, has been very common in this group and is a really significant barrier to people's treatment. We've also found that co-occurring depression and hypertension is very common in this group, and it often leads for people to be on just a range of different medications that can make it really difficult to get treatment. So again, I wanted to say thank you so much again for the opportunity to be here, and it's really been a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, I'll point out there are actually 3 compounds with the same mechanism on the market now. There are orexin, non-selective orexin antagonists, not approved for FDA use. I got to say, talk to your doctor. However, Dr. Caledon has published some very exciting results from some of these compounds in patients, in opioid use disorder patients.
Kurt, can I just add as well
Please.
that the study that Jennifer just described was also funded by Cure Addiction Now.
All right. Our last speaker, I'm getting some great questions here. Fantastic. Look forward to the discussion. Our last speaker is Dr. Adam Kaplan. He's the Chief Scientific Officer at Mirologics, and he'll talk about public health policy and substance use disorder.
Thanks, and thanks for the opportunity to come and be part of this. Everybody's mentioned it, but it's quite an event. So essentially what we need is to think outside of the box. What is the box? Well, the box is what's creating stigma, making it hard to get money and making it hard to get people into treatment. So what I'm going to talk about in 5 minutes is that we're targeting the wrong enemy. We are all casualties of the war on drugs. So going back in terms of the early history, which drug would you guess has 30 million addicts in this country, the most people addicted to it, has over 95,000 deaths per year, equal to any other bad player out there, and costs $300 billion a year in total costs. That drug is alcohol. So how did we get into this problem with alcohol? We repealed after 13 years in 1933. We just said, we're going to make alcohol legal, which led to, Al Capone going out of business. We got rid of organized crime. Law enforcement costs and judicial costs went down. But we have this huge problem. Alcohol is just an example, but the example is because it took us 40 years after legalizing it to actually put any money towards treatment. So $6.5 million went to the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. Now it's $0.5 billion, which is 1% of the war on drugs, goes to treating alcohol addiction. So it needs to be more than regulating drugs. We need to also maintain the awareness that we have to rehabilitate people. So what is the war on drugs? It was started by Nixon back in 1971 when he said, to fight and defeat this enemy, public enemy number one, drug abuse, it's necessary to wage an all-out offensive. So he started the DEA and instituted mandatory sentencing for drug crimes. That's a big problem if you think about it for 1 second, because it now means that people who use drugs are criminals as a result of this. It's very hard to destigmatize something when you make people criminals and put them in prison for it. So Reagan and Clinton administrations increased fourfold the number of people who were arrested. Making drug possession illegal and punishing people as criminals for using it is not only stigmatizing, it makes about as much sense as if we made it illegal to possess large quantities of fattening food and arrested people with obesity for eating them. Okay, literally think about how absurd that would be. That's where we are in terms of drug use. So it's not surprising people with substance use disorders are mistrustful and secretive, and it's hard for us to overcome this stigma because that's the way we deal with this problem. So annually we spend $50 billion total on the war on drugs. That's not a small figure. It's 25 times the entire budget for drug addiction research, 7 times the NIH cancer research budget, and 6 times the CDC, which we needed for this whole COVID thing. This is 6 times that budget. So it's broken down into $30 billion for enforcement, $10 billion for incarceration, and $10 billion for prevention and treatment. So how does that compare to the enemy we're up against? The enemy we're up against is that people in this country spend $150 billion a year on drugs. That goes 60% to pay the pockets of drug cartels and criminal organizations. 25% of that money funds guns and weapons, 15% for corruption and bribes. So drug use over time, we now have the same, essentially, what have we got for this war on drugs? We have essentially the same number of people using illicit drugs now as we did back in the 1970s. Some things have gone down, like cocaine. Heroin has tripled. So if you look overall, it's the same. So the incarceration, big problem, it ends up being something that 9 times, there was a 9-fold increase in drug-related incarcerations. 1 in 4 people in jail are there for drug-related crimes. It was 1 in 3 black men born in 1980s would be incarcerated. Now it's 1 in 5 black men. Black men are 5.5 times more likely to be incarcerated than whites. So that's not a good thing we've created for our society. There's this whole, 14th Amendment saying we're not supposed to discriminate against people. This is a phenomenal area of discrimination. So in terms of healthcare outcomes, overdose deaths have increased 16 times since the 1970s. And the one thing I just want to bring up so that you understand is Portugal is a very interesting example. They decriminalized the use of drugs. They didn't say it's fine to sell it, the use of drugs. And the treatment of drug users was part of that plan. They had a 94% decrease in drug-related deaths as a result, 75% decrease in HIV rates. Heroin use went down by 50%. cannabis use went down by 30%, and they saved $225 million. That's what happens when you regulate the use of drugs and rehabilitate users. So we know from studies, 12 studies that have been done, for every dollar invested in treatment, you save $4 in societal costs, which means if we took that $50 billion and put it into treatment of the 3 million people that it would pay for, we would save $200 billion a year in criminal activity, criminal justice costs, productivity, social services, et cetera. So just to conclude, we've lost the war on drugs. It is a failure. It continues to do more harm than good, with the unintended consequences such as incarceration of black men, making people who use drugs criminals. We can win the war on addiction if we combine drug use regulation with drug user rehabilitation. It's time to rethink the national strategy, redirect our resources, and focus on these evidence-based approaches. We have evidence that what we're doing is the wrong thing, and that there are ways of doing this that will turn things around. We need to prioritize public health and human dignity in order to get that done. So.
Wow.
Wow.
And you spilled out a lot of amazing information in a short amount of time.
Well,
I think everybody needs to hear that.
Kurt made it clear that he was going to rip me from my seat if I went any longer. So I was trying
Can
to
you
keep.
help make that happen?
Yeah, so it happens by the kinds of things that we're talking about, which is to bring this to light, to make sure people understand through, acting and documentaries and getting the word out. It means going to policy level things, going to people in Congress and this, letting them know. But policy is going to be an important part of this. This is just not a solution. We've gotten so used to this being the way we deal with it, but it's absurd that if you use drugs, you are a criminal, and we are trying to treat people who have a disease, and that has to stop. And where it has stopped, and I didn't get into the other examples like Switzerland, Netherlands, et cetera, but this is not just a one-off thing. We have to raise awareness about it. So.
Tremendous. Bravo. Thank you. Oh, great.
Great talk. Wow. Amazing.
Thank you, Nancy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Adam. We've got a wonderful group of questions here. Hopefully, we'll have nice discussions. Look forward to it. And one of the first question, I'll tell you what the question is, and then I'll give a little preamble to it. Can you explain how much each grant is? So, we give grants? People on the team submit an application, and we fund as many as we can. Those grants are $75,000. I wish it was triple that, to be honest. We're doing the best we can, but raise your hand if you could use more than $75,000 in the grant. It'd be wonderful to be able to do that. But we've got limited funds, but I hope we've tried to convince you we've got the team that has the right attitude and knows what to do. And I'm not going to be embarrassed about asking for donations. We will put these to great use. We will help people. This team knows what it's doing. These are the all-stars. So, and you heard the echoes of that in many of the discussions, that government plays a role. There are government grants, but there are things the government's good at and things it's not good at. It's slow, less responsive, but it has its role. Private sector has a role, but frankly, they're less interested. There's some small companies, big pharma, not so much yet. I think that can change. But each group has a role. Now, philanthropy has a very, very important role, and there's not enough philanthropy in this sector. This is a great example of what philanthropy can do. We can fill those gaps that the government can't do, that private industry is not doing. We get the scientists in the room, and we figure out where those gaps are, and we know what to do with these funds. So, again, I'm not going to be embarrassed. We will put any donation to great use. We'll translate. I think you've heard about some of these, not only proximal, imminent solutions, medications, but we're funding, sowing the seeds of the future and funding young investigators and bringing them along into this community, into this group. So that's my unabashed plug, and how we use our funds. Lots of questions related to ketamine, as you might expect, and I'm glad we got an expert right here. I'll go through a series of them, and you can answer them as you see. Regarding ketamine, why did Matthew Perry overdose? Wasn't he using it for recovery? The short answer is he was misusing it, but I'll let, it was being misused. I'll let Dr. Keller take that one, and then there's a series of them. Well, a related one, I'll just throw it out there now. What is the safe dose of ketamine? There is a safe dose. That's part of the answer. We've heard of Matthew Perry's overdose. We all want to know what a normal dose compared to what he had. Anyway, please.
Yeah, first, I just many people knew and loved Matthew Perry, and I have just a tremendous amount of compassion for him and all the people around him. And I don't know what happened with Matthew Perry, so I just want to be really clear there. In thinking about ketamine, I'm reminded, my crazy dad was hiking a couple weeks ago. He fell, he broke his leg, and the paramedics gave him fentanyl. So there is this reality of that these are powerful medications that require stewardship. So I think these questions around what is the appropriate use of a medication like ketamine is a really, really important one that won't go away. That it should be a constant sort of dialogue as we're thinking about how to maximize the benefits of this and minimize the harms, because there clearly are potential harms. That sort of being said, ketamine itself is one of the safest medications we have, as evidenced by, for example, if you're the military in the field, where you have no monitoring, you have nothing, and you need to have a powerful analgesic, ketamine is the first line, because it is so safe. So whatever happened with Matthew Perry was something which was just very, 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 very far outside the norms of practice. So the doses that I'm talking about, which are like 10, 20 milligrams, that kind of thing, he's probably 100 times that, way, way, way more than what we're talking about. And so I think that was sort of my comments around that. And
many people get addicted.
Oh yeah, no. So ketamine addiction is quite rare. There is people can become addicted to many, 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 many things. But in general, with ketamine, it's restricted to a very tiny, small subset of people. It's not something that we see. I run a very, very open door program where I treat thousands of people, and there is no barrier. You just walk in, you give us a text, you're on the team. We're going to take care of you as long as you need it. And I'll take care of someone who's complaining of feeling out of control with their ketamine use, maybe once a year, once every other year. It's very rare, very rare.
Thanks. A related question, not about the actual medical use of ketamine. It borders on policy, which I think both you and Adam will have some thoughts on. Dr. Herring, should we, parentheses, the federal government, create addiction triage for all people, not just those on Medi-Cal? Even those with financial resources don't know where to take their loved ones for help. If an addict in any socioeconomic level decides to get help, it would be valuable to offer them a place to walk in and get immediate help.
Yeah, here, absolutely. And there's a crazy irony, is that with my program in Oakland, the many county systems actually can't accept private insurance. And so we take care of many people with private insurance because they have nowhere to go. So I couldn't agree with that more. I think the clear thing is that we lack a federally designated, organized, mandated system that's both funded and has consequences when you don't do a good job. So a good parallel in my head is the trauma system of care. When you get into a car crash, you can trust you're going to be brought to a center where they have high-quality physicians that are doing the right thing and that they're funded to do it. We just don't have that for substance use disorder. It's a hodgepodge of states and communities doing kind of whatever they want. this idea of driving towards a universal evidence-based approach, which places like, or groups like CAN are really at the forefront of pushing, is absolutely essential to our way out of this. No question.
Thanks. Yeah. Fantastic. All right, well, I'll take the burden off you. I'll leave some questions to some other people for a minute here. May we have a copy of Dr. Kaplan's report?
Yeah, right? I think we all want that.
Thanks. I actually emailed it just now to you.
You
and to
emailed me,
Liz,
and
so-
then I'll send it to Liz or one of you guys, and you could send anybody who wants it. Send a note to Cure Addiction Now, the link that you were invited on, and we will make sure you get it. That was amazing.
Okay, Dr. Comer, who and when would receive your vaccines?
So broadly, we, as I discussed in my presentation yesterday in the scientific forum, the vaccine could be useful in a variety of people across different stages of opioid use disorder. So we have people who are using occasionally, they don't have the disorder yet, and then, for somebody who might be vulnerable, they'll progress to the disorder. So theoretically, we could give it to somebody who's at high risk of developing the opioid use disorder to prevent the progression. What we're targeting right now is a group of people who have the disorder. So they're, ongoing users. That's the population that we're recruiting right now. They have moderate to severe opioid use disorder, and we're giving them this series of vaccines and monitoring the safety, immunogenicity, and preliminary efficacy of the vaccine. What we're not sure about yet, and our research will hopefully help answer, is whether or not the vaccine would be strong enough, if you will, to be useful as a standalone medication. One thing that's a really nice feature of these vaccines is that they're very specific in terms of targeting the drug. So, as I mentioned, we're developing this multivalent vaccine that targets oxycodone, heroin, fentanyl, whatever else might come on the scene, but they don't target, existing medications for treating opioid use disorder like methadone or buprenorphine. So if it's not effective enough as a standalone medication, we could also use it in combination with another medication like methadone and buprenorphine. This is really, really important because we know from existing data that for people who initiate treatment with methadone or buprenorphine, it works really well, and I'm really grateful that we have these medications because, as my colleague said, we don't have any medications for treating cocaine or methamphetamine, and that's a major problem. So what we know is that people who initiate treatment, after about 6 months, half of those patients will relapse. So I know it's a chronic relapsing disorder. So if they had the vaccine on board, what we are thinking is that at the very least, it might prevent somebody from overdosing on an opioid that they've used, and it will, maybe provide a window of opportunity to re-engage them in treatment. So that's kind of the way we're thinking about it.
Thanks, Andy. Dr. Hendershot, we have a question here about semaglutides. Do semaglutides only alleviate alcohol use, or does it help with other drugs?
So one of the reasons we're really excited about work in this area is that this class of medications, including semaglutide, but also GLP-1 receptor agonists, do appear to suppress intake of other addictive drugs also. So the evidence, so far is probably particularly strong for alcohol. It's also there for nicotine and to some extent stimulants and opioids. And I'm speaking mainly here about non-human animal studies. But there's some more recent clinical evidence, again, going back to data from medical charts and insurance claims, showing that these drugs can reduce indicators of cannabis use and tobacco use based on clinical data. And I'd also mentioned briefly some promising data that came out of Penn State University, which was discussed at one of these meetings previously, showing that people who are receiving inpatient treatment for opioid use disorder have a decrease in opioid cravings while they're exposed to a GLP-1 receptor agonist. That study looked at an older drug called liraglutide, which is actually just now a generic drug. Another company has put out a generic version of liraglutide. So, promising in the sense that, again, we don't really have any tools in our toolkit now that we can deploy kind of across the board for different types of substance use disorder. And that's one of the exciting things about this class of medications, if we can do the work to demonstrate that.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Hendershot. We've got just a general question for the group. Those on front lines with addicts know street drugs are ahead of the treatments available. What can be done in light of this dilemma? I'll take first swipe at that. Yes, it's an ever-changing process. First it was oxy, then it became heroin, then fentanyl a little bit, and then fentanyl took over. Now there's cousins of fentanyl. The people that are supplying it are always looking for something new. So many of the medications we're talking about can have use for multiple opiates. So for example, the compound that Dr. Toombs is developing for opiate withdrawal would, in theory, be useful for withdrawal from any type of opiate. So that's one advantage. But we do have to be sensitive to different types of withdrawals from different opiates. And Dr. Dunn was one of the first people to notice that when fentanyl started hitting her patients in Baltimore, like, whoa, this is a different animal. This is a different type of withdrawal. And we're studying that. We hope to come out with some guidelines for how to treat fentanyl withdrawal if it's different. So yes, it's a challenge, but I think many of the medications can have multiple uses over a broad spectrum, and we're bright scientists. We got to keep up with the pushers, and we can do every chance to do that.
Can I add one thing to
Please.
that? One of the issues that we face is that the drug supply changes so fast that it's hard for us to keep up with what are the new things being added into it. And so one thing we could do is invest resources into more surveillance of the drug supply. And so there are some efforts right now. I know one called NDUs. If you all are interested, you can subscribe to it, and you get emails about hotspots for different ingredients that are being found in different parts of the country with the opioid supply. But that's another way we could potentially try to keep up a little bit better, is keeping up with surveillance. NDEWS. Forget exactly what that stands for, but yeah. If you just Google NDUs, it should pop up. It's funded by NIDA, I believe, the NIH, and it's out of the University of Florida. Yeah.
I believe it stands for National Drug Early Warning System. So that's what.
Kurt, can I add to that quickly?
Please.
So I guess two quick thoughts. One is an example, well, as we learn about these new medications or drugs that are being added to the drug supply, so xylazine or trank-dope is a good example of that. We started hearing about that in our patient population and from our participants, and we were able to work with Cassie, who does preclinical modeling, and she was quickly able to develop an animal model where she can really look at some of the nuances of it. And so that was facilitated by groups like CAN, where we have these kind of small scientific interdisciplinary conversations where we can kind of share the clinical experience with the animal researchers so they can quickly see these ideas, and then we can put it back into the human, our understanding. Cimetidine is another example of that. So she was able to quickly develop a lab model to look at that, and now we might be able to actually go and test that in our patients, very quickly. The other thing I'll add fast is that I think destigmatizing the condition is really helpful, because I don't know, I've thought a lot about this. I don't know that we're going to get ahead of all of these adulterants, right? The market is moving faster than we can sometimes surveil it, but if we could offset the consequences of it, if people felt, if it was easier for them to acknowledge that they were experiencing challenges or problems, or that they felt more comfortable in just going and talking to their doctor openly about it, that they could get into the treatment system earlier so that they didn't accrue as many consequences of the continued use. And because often we see people that come in because they've reached a point where they're kind of at a very low level, and they've accumulated a lot of challenges, medical and psychiatric and housing and financial, and that's a really difficult scenario to help somebody, and we're committed to it, but it takes a lot of effort. And if they just felt, I think about this all the time, if only they had felt comfortable coming in a year ago, we could have helped them in a much different capacity. So I think the only way to do that is to help destigmatize the condition. So that's why conversations like Lisa's is really valuable, because it helps us to normalize it a little bit and make people realize how ubiquitous this is and how valuable it is for people to just be able to, it's a medical condition that they should be able to be open about.
I just have just
Please,
a,
please. Yeah,
a
no,
complementary perspective
join
is
in.
that I've really come to think that the most effective way to prevent the development or the advent or the arrival of new and novel substances into the market is actually to get individuals suffering with opioid use disorder into treatment. And how I got there was in part by some of the work by an economist at Harvard named David Cutler. And he's really just points out that what changed in the United States between now and, let's say, 1995 is the development of just an enormous market of people living with use disorder. And so that market is what drives innovation on the illicit side. So many of these substances that we're talking about, such as fentanyl, have been around for decades. Fentanyl has been here since the 70s or 80s. No one wanted it. Oxycodone was around, since the 1940s. There was no market for it. So xylazine has been around for decades. No one wanted it. So I want to kind of ground us back in the core of the way to prevent this is to treat people who are in front of us who want care, to get them into treatment. And that's how you extinguish the market. And when that is extinguished, all those people looking to exploit people suffering from disease will lose traction.
Please, go ahead, Adam.
So I'm not sure if people know it's worse than this question even suggests, which is that now if you come in for treatment, it doesn't matter what your experience is, you get put into a chain, a line of care that will be the same for you as it is for the person next to you. And what is really to Nancy and Kurt's great brilliance is to say the existing treatments, this is not the way to do it. So I work with Nancy on the MS Center, and we have 25 different drugs now that if you come in and you have severe MS, you get one treatment. If you've got MS that has, more progressive, you have a different treatment. Right now, if you check yourself in, you get one treatment. It doesn't matter. And having the ability, so as Dr. Comer has, told us, for many of my patients, they show up and they really show up ready for change. But when they get released, it's hard for them to maintain that, same mindset if they were vaccinated so that they would have the ability to continue to maintain sobriety, because even if they tried to use, it wouldn't lead to the same response. I mean, for certain patients, that's the right treatment. For other patients, it's ketamine when they're with, all of the people here have different treatments that they're recommending, and that's the brilliance of Nancy and Kurt in getting this sort of group of people to come up with new treatments to be able to treat this like any other disease, which is it's not, fit the person to the treatment, it's fit the treatment to the person, but we don't have those treatments yet.
Can I just add on to that real quick? So just a concrete example of the importance of investment in this area. So I've been in this field for over 30 years. It's like forever, it feels like. And so when fentanyl hit the streets, then, Congress recognized that we really need to do something urgently. So they set up this HEAL initiative that they call it, Helping End Addiction Long Term, which was a big influx of funding for research and treatment into the community, scientific, clinical community. And I've been working with the medications development branch for most of my career at NIDA. And I got this 2 slides from Yvonne Montoya, who's currently the director of this division, and Kurt was formerly the director. Before the HEAL funds became available, there were 14 medications in NIDA's pipeline for treating all the drug classes. So the HEAL initiative started 6 years ago. Now, the number of medications that are in the pipeline is over 80. In just that short period of time, that infusion of funding was enough to just stimulate so much research in this area. And it's the research that will lead to these new treatments. And I really want to see so many new medications in a physician's toolbox that he can use to treat different patients.
Right, exactly. The more treatment options, the better. We're never going to have a silver bullet for any substance use disorder. It'll be like any other area of medicine. There are multiple options. Think of cardiovascular disease. Do you get one treatment for that? No, you get blood pressure treatment for the defib. You change in lifestyles. There's a whole armamentarium taken to that, and that's where we need to be for substance
And
use.
insurance covers that,
Yeah, yeah.
not this.
We're going to change the landscape and now get more options into qualified physicians like that are sitting here to treat patients from multiple angles.
I wanted to just address something that that Dr. Kaplan said that is so pertinent and so important, and it really spoke volumes to me because being Latina, you know, my husband's a Jewish guy from Brooklyn, and my son looked just like me. And, you know, it was very distressing to me because my son is very brown like me. I basically could not get the police to investigate. They pretty much saw drugs everywhere because my son had every drug in his body to get himself to kill himself. And they figured, oh, this is just another, you know, druggy kid, Latino, you know, and we don't have time for him. And basically, I went to the North Hollywood police station to try to get help, and my son's file was at the bottom of the pile. And this Latino cop that I was trying to get to help me, he was like, I'm so sorry, but they will not help me and allow me to help you because I was trying to get into my son's phone. I thought somebody murdered my son at first, you know? I thought, you know, because when they're in this world of drugs, it changes them. And they start dealing sometimes, or they start to support their own habits. They become somebody else. And so I wanted to know, did someone kill my son? And I could not get the help. And I said, is this happening even more so because my son is brown like me? And he was like, I don't want to say it in so many words, but so it just speaks volumes to what you say. And, you know, it's such a huge picture that there are so many webs connected to it that need to change. It's, you know what I mean? So I just wanted to share that because
So unfair.
yeah, it's not fair. It's not right.
At all. It's wrong.
But it only changes if people like you are brave enough to tell the story. So it's just if it's not on the radar and people don't know what's going on, then they don't identify the problem. So
Definitely.
Thanks. Time for a couple more questions. There's such a high relapse rate after detox and rehab. What is the latest evidence on the single most important levers to reduce relapse rate sustainably? Anybody? That's a tough one.
Tough question.
Go. It's a topic of significant interest in the field. I don't know that there's not a clear answer yet. I think there's lots of new medications that are being tried that one of the challenges, there's a lot of challenges that contribute to that, but one of them I think is that we need new innovation in that area. That in my mind, I think that there's clearly unmet need, right? There's some kind of physiological gap in what our medications are being able to provide, and some kind of extended, people often experience additional craving or insomnia or depression or change in mood, and these are things that we know increase the likelihood that they will leave treatment earlier, that they'll relapse after treatment. And we need different approaches to try to address that. And many of the medications that were discussed here are those approaches, things like ketamine or semaglutide, or there's interest in psychedelics and things that would just, they're very different. And so, I think that that's probably the direction that I'm excited about that direction, I should say, because I think it just represents transformation in how we're thinking about treating this. And I think, in my mind, that's what we need, because continuing to use the same tools aren't necessarily helping everyone in the same way.
I just was going to offer the perspective of treating as a clinician. So with the Bridge program, we frame it as a lifetime membership, meaning like when we meet someone, sometimes in crisis circumstances, sometimes in instability, is we lay the groundwork that you're a member for life, with anticipation that this is going to be a relapsing, remitting, complicated course. It's not a one, there is no sort of one event or one treatment episode that's going to fix this completely. And it's about being with people through the long haul and being able to move them away from harm and towards wellness at every moment, whatever that looks like for that individual. So that's how we sort of think about it, to kind of get out of that bind of success and failure.
Can I offer just one thought as well? So I guess maybe more to directly answer the question. I mean, there are a variety of factors, as Kelly mentioned, that can contribute to relapse. I mean, lingering withdrawal symptoms, insomnia is a big one. Craving, it's Cecilia studies, is another one. Trying to control all these different symptoms that we know contribute to relapse. But the thing that just drives me nuts are the practical things that we can really fix from a policy perspective. Because we know that if people are in treatment, it reduces the risk of overdose, and both fatal and non-fatal. And yet there are these, insurance-related issues that are, driving patients to have to give up their buprenorphine or their methadone or whatever. And so, I mean, I was so happy when you said last night that you were going to be talking about policy, because I'm very passionate about this as well. And we need to continue to push to expand treatment, to make it easier for patients to obtain it. And I attended this meeting several years ago with clinicians from around the world to talk about how long should patients stay on medication, which is a ridiculous question in the US.
Right.
Because, clinicians from Europe, for example, they're like, why are you asking this question? Of course, the patient needs to be on it for the rest of their life. What's wrong with that? And it's the stigma and, these policies, insurance policies, that are driving this crazy attitude about treatment. So, I'm doing a lot personally in terms of addressing various bills that come up, to support ones that are, expanding access to treatment, to try to, block ones that are limiting it. So there's a lot, I think, that we can do in the field, both in other organizations that I'm involved with, and I hope, Nancy and Kurt also agree that we should probably do some more of this as part of this organization.
But just to let people know that it's not like Dr. Comer doesn't have a full-time job with her research, just trying to come up with these things, and she goes to the Hill and she participates in these things. So it takes a lot of work. We all have to roll up our sleeves and realize we have to, either clone Dr. Comer or, we all have to spend the time and work. But, my answer to that is our brain has reward systems in it. That reward system is hijacked by the repetitive use of drugs, and we have yet to have available treatments that will rewire the brain to deal with, as was mentioned, the craving and the like. So until we can get into and monkey around with that rewiring that's taken place, craving is what causes the relapse a year out. And as long as the craving and the rewiring of the nervous system is there. But we saw yesterday amazing examples with semaglutide and the vaccines and work on craving, that there are inroads. We just have to have funding and continued research to get to that problem.
Thanks, Adam. Anybody else want to, have I overlooked anyone who made a comment, want to make a comment, any other questions? Great, any other questions from the audience? I'll wrap up with a concluding statement, or a thought. I hope we've been able to demonstrate to you the quality of this team. I mean, not talking about me, these guys are amazing. We've put together a great team. We're doing a lot. We can do more. And again, I'm not going to be embarrassed to say we need donations. If you can't donate, find someone who can. We're going to put it to good use. It's a way of leaving a legacy. This gift will change the treatment of people's lives forever. People you don't even know. And it will eventually change society's attitude towards substance use disorder, which is another thing we need to change, and hopefully change policy as well. So I'm just so proud to be with these guys. I can't believe I'm in the same room with them. They're incredible. Yes, question, please.
I just want to ask a quick question. Maybe it's dumb, but why isn't the government seeing you and going, oh my God, here's a team. Why do we have to reinvent the wheel and have a whole other system outside of this? Because this is the team that's moving forward. What is the response? Have you guys reached out to the government, Big Pharma, whoever those people are?
Well, I've spent time in both big pharma and government, and they each have their way of proceeding and the way they want to proceed. There's advantages, but many disadvantages to that. Going to the government and asking money for a philanthropy, I don't think is going to be successful. The philanthropy, we can act nimbly and quickly and fill the gaps that the scientists, the people in the lab and on the ground know where to fill, where the work needs to be done. And I think that's a useful way. We can ask for more government money. As Sandy mentioned, government money is being put towards this, but whenever government money goes towards something, it's cumbersome and slow moving, and because that's one of the disadvantages. So I think a fast, nimble group of bright people, not me, but the rest of these team here, can really make a difference. And part of our goal, frankly, is to fund small studies that generate the pilot data that the government doesn't particularly want to fund. Then take that data and go to the government and we'll go, look at this pilot study, it's working. Let's get the bigger money and into larger grants. So we're not working against them. We can work hand in hand with them. We can fund things that they're not interested in, and then bring the data forward and leverage the smaller grants into bigger grants. And eventually get the private sector involved and the big guns if we can convince them of the market and the lack of risk.
It takes an average of 2 years from submission of a grant to getting funding. 2 years, which is forever. I mean, it's a long process. I've served on grant review committees for NIH for most of my career, and there was a period of time when they said, the new thing for reviewing the grants was high risk, high gain kind of studies. But inherently, both scientists and the government, they're very conservative, and they don't like to take risks on studies that might fail. And that's where something like this organization could really be helpful, because, my colleagues here are doing really amazing research, and I think that's maybe part of the reason why this really quick turnaround. I think the turnaround time from submission of a CAN award to getting it is maybe 6 months on the outside. And it's a nice size package to do some good work. But, if it doesn't work in a year or 2 years, you can move on to something else. But at least we're having the opportunity to try.
Yeah, pilot data tends to be very important for grant applications to the government. They want to see, all right, this is a chance that this is going to work. You already need some pilot data, but it's very hard to get that pilot data if you don't already have some funding.
Exactly.
So part of the lever we're trying to pull is just that, fund some of these different ideas, novel approaches that it's hard to get funding for, so that we can generate that pilot data and then go to government for the big money, and then potentially the private sector as well.
But let me also add that, there's almost as many of us as there are of you, so get the word out.
Yes, please.
Talk about it. Get more people engaged. What amazes me is how passionate everybody here is. And just to let you know, this group last night was talking about how energized we all are to be here and to do this. We're not being paid to be here. We're here because we are passionate about this. And if you can get people engaged and motivated for whatever reasons, then the more people, more votes, the more communication will happen.
I think, Francis, we got to do some videos on our social media. And I think that, absolutely. Listen, I'm going to do my part because I have
Others
been
acting up, did you say?
involved. Latina's acting up.
No,
Latina's acting up.
Latina's acting up.
But, yeah, but my point in saying that is that, I've been kind of pulled into advocacy, and I've been to the White House. I just got back from there, and mostly with Latin groups and Black and Brown communities. So I'm kind of feeling this might be a way in there,
Good.
right? To make a connection, because you never know how it's going to happen. But if you don't try, you never know. So
Yeah, and
Pray for me.
wonderful legacy to leave for the world.
Yes.
Medications to help people
yes.
for generations.
Cindy, did you want Yeah, I want you to meet her. Maybe we all need to have a big meeting with her, but we need to figure exactly what we're asking for and make it very specific. Because there's a lot of, we need to ask for a lot, but we have to be very, very focused and very specific on what's the most important thing that we want, which is everything.
I like that attitude.
I know.
We're
I
eager,
guess
we're ready.
We have to break it up
We can do
into
it.
pieces that are financed, are able to be financed and doable, and things that look like they would like to fund them. And sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. I've got a plan, and we're going to talk.
Let's all go do that. I'm down for all of that. Am I on now?
Yeah, I think it's time to wrap up.
I mean, we can keep talking forever. Thank you. This whole group, I don't even know. I feel like the least intelligent person in the room. They're so brilliant. They're so bright. They're so motivated. Everything you're doing. We started this as a dream. My son Jason had a dream, and I know that he would be so proud to look at where the group is, how they've evolved, the energy. I'm just meeting yesterday, last night, and I don't know, it's really taken off. We started, it was COVID, and nobody even wanted to come to a meeting. Everyone wanted to do it via Zoom. I'm like, I'm not doing Zoom. The whole reason that the Center Without Walls like this works is because people are spending a couple days together, they're talking, they're making relationships, they have a question about this or that, and it's really happening. But to see the synergy of each and every one of you and what's going on, it's my dream. It would be my son Jason's dream. And there's just an enormous amount of people we have to help. This is the leading cause of death in our country, above everything. And we spend so much money on cancer, on heart disease. They're all important, but why do we not care about the leading cause of death? That is inexcusable on every level. We all suffer for this disease in one way or another. You might not realize it. Even your taxes, the homeless population, all the things that you find offensive and whatever. I mean, there's a reason why they're there, and it's because we have not taken care of the biggest problem that is facing our society. And that is what it is. We have to stop like brushing this under the rug and acting like it's not important, or we're going to shame this person. That person's a bad person because they're a drug addict. They're not a bad person. We all start off the same way. We're wired differently. And because we're wired differently, when you have these cravings that they're talking about, and the government does not want to fund cravings, it's all about cravings. That's what it is. You're wired differently. Your body craves something. You try a drug for the first time, like what happened to her son. He didn't want to be a drug addict. He didn't want to ruin his soccer career, his life, his everything. But he was wired in such a way also that made him become an addict and made him go down this terrible rabbit hole in life. And unfortunately, he's not here today to talk about it. And she's heartbroken. Everybody who loved him is heartbroken. We're all heartbroken to hear your story. It's very sad. It's very moving, but it's very pertinent. It's what everyone goes through. And there shouldn't be any more parents who have to bury their children, ever. That's the worst thing you could do. But beyond that, there's all these adults we love. We all have someone we love. Whoever it is that has an addiction, they don't want to be an addict. That's their predisposition in life, and that's who you are. Let's figure a way to make it kind, fair, and find real cures, and figure out how we desperately need more money. We need to fund way more research. I, however, am very excited with the money that we have been able to put this team together. If I didn't meet Kurt one day, I don't know that I'd be here. I first started this charity, and I started cold calling doctors who sounded the best. There was very little research that was ever funded and basic science research for addiction. And I went to NIH, and I met Kurt one day, and I basically kidnapped him. And I adored him. We were both like-minded people thinking the same way, and he genuinely really cared. And I thought I could go out and just knock on doors and call people, and I didn't have the wherewithal to know how to find him. He knew where every bone was buried, and he continues to find the best, the most talented, the most brilliant doctors who are going to help us solve this horrendously big problem. But we can, and we have to do it bit by bit, piece by piece, and there's no way that we're not gonna stop until we do it. And again, cure addiction now. We want to do it